Drawing a polar bear is easier than you think, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it, no matter your skill level. Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve, and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and design. So if you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the weekly videos and so that you can join our wonderful creative community. And with that said, grab your drawing tools and let's get started. So as usual, we're going to start by creating a new canvas so that we have somewhere to draw. For reference, these are the dimensions of the canvas that I will be using. It is literally just the size of the iPad screen since this is demo, but make sure you pick something that works for your own project requirements. If you're not exactly sure how to pick a canvas size, I have a video in which I teach you everything you need to know in order to make your decision, so I will link that in the description below. Now, I often get questions on how to have this little reference image on the top left. If you want to include it in your illustration as well, or if you want to have it on your screen as well, all you have to do is click on the wrench icon menu. In the canvas section, you're going to have the reference option, which is going to allow you to import the picture. So you can do that and then place it wherever you want it on your screen. I have my illustration that you can use as a reference. It is linked in the description below, along with the color palette. They're both totally free, so you can just download it if you want. That being said, if you want to get even better practice, I recommend you try in picking your own colors and try without the reference on the side. So once we have everything ready, we're going to start by creating a rough shape for the background, and then we're going to move on to the sketch. So start by creating a new layer. We're going to make it to background shape, and here you could fill in the entire background if you want, or just draw kind of an organic shape like I'm going to do. I feel like an organic shape works really well if you want to use this illustration on top of a greeting card or something like that. So for the shape, I'm going to go with this icy blue here, but you could go with any shape or any color, of your choice. And in this video, I'm always going to be suggesting two different kind of brush. One is going to be a brush that comes with Procreate that is totally free and it's going to allow you to follow along just fine. And the other brush is going to be a brush from my Ultimate Illustration Bundle. Now, these brushes are not essential. You don't need to buy anything to follow along this video. That's totally okay. But if you want to get them, they're going to allow you to save some time and get more professional results overall. So that's cool. If you want to check them out, they will be linked in the description below. There's always a special promo code for the YouTube people. For the background, you have a few options. You could use in the sketching panel the 6B pencil, which is a nice brush that has a little bit of a grit to it. Or if you want to have a super plain, flat base, you could use the hard brush in the airbrushing panel, making sure that you lift the opacity back up to 100% if you watch my watercolor videos. If you have the illustration bundle, you could pick either the base round brush or the outline brush, again, depending on if you want a flat or slightly textured outline. And here, all you have to do, I'm going to go with the outline brush, by the way, is just roughly draw your shape. So I'm going to go with kind of an egg shape on the side. And here, I say roughly, but you do want to make sure that you like the shape that you're drawing. So if when you're drawing the outline and then you fill it in, you realize that you're not super happy with the shape, take the time you need to tweak it so you're happy with it. If you're not happy with the base, it's going to be tough to like the final illustration. So take all the time you need to make this simple shape nice, and then we're going to add some snow. So when you're happy with your shape, we're going to go ahead and activate Alpha Lock in order to add the snow only in the shape. So to do that, you can either swipe this layer with 2 fingers towards the right like this, or if you tap on the layer, you're going to be able to manually activate Alpha Lock from the menu. So now everything we draw on this layer is going to stay within the background shape. So we're going to pick pure white. And if you're working with Procreate, you have a few snow options where you have one brush for the snow. So it is located in the element panel, which is right at the bottom, well, pretty much at the bottom. And it's called Driven Snow. So you can see here, you can just quickly brush over and it draws snow. Now, it is a little bit dense. So I went ahead and created a version of it that just has less snow. It's the same brush, but just less snowflake. I called it Simple Snow. If you want to download it, it will be linked in the description below as well. It is totally free. Both options work really well. It's just I like having a little fewer snowflakes. And if you're not working with Procreate, you can also just manually draw the snow in the background. It should not be too long. You just draw some little dots. Awesome. So with that done, we are going to start making a super rough sketch. So for that, create a new layer above the background shape layer, rename it to sketch. And here we're really just going to be placing the basic shapes. So for that, the color doesn't matter because we're not going to see this rough sketch in the final result. I like to sketch, which is great, but you can pick whatever you want. And same thing with the brush, it doesn't really matter because we're not going to see it in the final result. So if you're working with Procreate, the free brushes, you can go and pick the HP pencil in the sketching panel. Or if you have the illustration bundle, go ahead and pick the sketching brush. So here again, we're just going to start with the super basic shape. So starting with the horizontal line for the ground. And then we're going to draw the body, which is going to be a big, long oval like this. And the head is going to be just a circle on top of the oval. Once you have that, you can go ahead and split the body in two halves, so something like that, which is going to allow you then to draw two more ovals for the legs. So these ovals are going to be vertical and they're going to be pretty much, the same size. And you can also draw a little bit of a triangle in front of the ovals for the feet, and then just going back in and straightening the lines so that the legs are not just like two ovals, they're a little bit straighter. So just kind of adding that straightness here, as well as maybe a little bit of a tail at the back, so just a little circle like that. And with the legs roughly mapped out, we're going to be ready to roughly map out the arms as well. So here we're just seeing one of the arms, and I always like to start with a circle for the shoulder and then a bean shape for the arm, and then depending on the character, sometimes just using the bean shape for the hand as well. But here you can see I'm kind of adding a little bit of a rounded rectangle for the hand. Now we're also going to draw a little bit of present here, so just a rectangle. And I kind of lied to you, we're going to see the other arm a little bit, it's just kind of poking below the gift, so something a little bit like this. And if you want, feel free to add a bow on top of the present as well. And just like for the legs, it might be a good idea here to straighten up the sides of the body so it's not as narrow around the neck area. And we're also going to thicken the bottom part of the face. So right now we just have a circle, but we're going to extend the two bottom sides to make it a little bit more like a bell shape. We're also going to draw a plus sign on the face, or on the head I should say, to indicate the direction it's facing in, so something a little bit like this. And if you want, you can reinforce the bean shape of the head, so just drawing some sort of an indent around the horizontal line, so something a little bit like this. With the plus sign, you're going to be able to easily place the eyes and the nose, something a little bit like that. And then adding a cute little mouth. You could add it in the middle if you want. I like to have it on the side. I don't know, it's just part of my style, I guess. If you want here, you can go ahead and draw a Santa hat. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and draw little ears on top of the head. So for the Santa hat, all you have to do is draw kind of the first, like a rounded, curved rectangle. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. But for the wide part of the hat. And then draw a very flat hat that is kind of falling behind the head with a super pointy end and then a little pom-pom, so just a circle. So again, here, this shape, you don't have to necessarily draw a hat. If you want, you could have a beanie, or you could have just straight up the ears. So experiment here and find what you like, depending on how festive you want this little bear to be. And believe it or not, this was the hardest part of the tutorial. Now, all we have to do is clean up our sketch and add some color, shading a little bit, but it should not be too hard. So we are going to start by cleaning up our sketch, and for that we're going to create a new layer above the sketch layer, rename it to Clean Sketch. And I personally like to lower the opacity of my base sketch layer until I can just barely see it, but you could go ahead and on your Clean Sketch layer just draw with a darker color than you did for the sketch, and that would work as well. I'm personally going to stick with the same gray since I went ahead and lowered the opacity. And here, to get a fresher look on our sketch, we're going to flip it horizontally. So just selecting your sketch layer again, and using the arrow tool, you're going to be able to click Flip Horizontal. Now this is going to, again, like I was saying, give you a fresher look, which is going to allow you to see your mistakes before cleaning the sketch. So if anything needs some adjustment here, some tweaking, you're going to see it a little bit better before adding the colors. It's just easier to correct any mistake at this stage, because later you can always tweak your colors, but it's just a little bit more complicated. So all we have to do on this clean sketch is just, well, cleaning the sketch. So all the lines that we've drawn, we're going to try and go ahead and just pick the right one. So you're going to try and find which line you want to use and just sketch over that one, basically. And here you can see it's still not perfect. So all we want is to have a better idea of what we're going to draw. but not necessarily having it be super clean. Like, it's not a line art. We're not going to see this clean sketch in the final result either, but we want to know what we are working with. So here, take all the time you need to find your lines, and then we're going to add the color. And with that, it is time for the secret password. So if you've watched this part of the video, please go ahead and leave a comment saying what you think is in the little present box that our polar bear is holding right now. So if you're new on the channel, you might be like, what's that secret password thing? Well, we've been doing this for months now, and it's kind of becoming a staple of the channel. It does a lot of really cool things. One of them is it gives me a lot of insight into how to edit and pace my videos better, which helps me to create better tutorials for you guys, and that's what we all want after all. And it's also really cool because you guys know me, you see my face in the intro, you hear my voice throughout the entire video, but I have no idea who you guys are. And whenever you leave a comment, I get to see sometimes your name, sometimes your face, and it's just really cool to see who's part of the creative community that we're building here on this channel. It's also fun because I know some people really look forward to knowing what the secret password is going to be in the video, so it's kind of like this little thing that we have here hidden in the community. So anyway, just leave a comment with what you think is in the present, and then we're going to keep going by either hiding the base sketch layer if you want to just work with the clean sketch, or keeping both, which is what I like to do because I like to see the construction line. I think it's helpful. So you could go ahead and play with the opacity of the base sketch until it's really just barely there, and then merge the two layers by squishing them with two fingers like this. And right before we add the colors, don't forget to flip your sketch back so it's facing the right again. So we're going to start for the color with just basic silhouettes. So super simple, just drawing the outline and then filling it in. And we're going to do that on separate layers so that we can tweak them. That being said, first you might want to set your sketch to the blending mode multiply and lower the opacity until probably 50% or something like that. That way the sketch is not going to be too much in the way, but using multiply is going to allow us to still see it on dark colors. Once that is done, go ahead and create a new layer, put it below the sketch and rename it to Bear. So here you could have any color bear you want, honestly. I'm gonna go with a polar bear, so a cream color. And if you're using Procreate, you can go ahead and select your background blue. Then in the harmony panel in the color selection tool, you're going to have the option to select complementary. So it's on the top left right below colors. And complementary is going to give you a cream color that works really well with your background blue. So you can go ahead and pick that and make sure that your color palette looks good. So you can do that, or you can just manually pick a cream. That's totally okay as well. Or you can pick the one that is on the top left in the color palette. So any color that you choose is fine here, and once you have your color, all we're going to do is we're going to pick a solid brush. For that, you could go in the airbrushing panel and picking the hard brush, or if you have the illustration bundle, go ahead and pick the base round brush. And like I was saying, all we're doing here is we're drawing the outline, and then we're going to fill it in to create a silhouette. So at this stage, everything that is going to be this white cream color, we're going to outline to fill in. And here, take all the time you need to create really nice outlines. You don't want it to be choppy, you want it to be flowy and nice. So if you need to undo and redo your curves, that's totally okay. Make sure you take really as much time as needed to make this nice, because otherwise, if your silhouettes are not really good looking, it's going to be really hard to make the final illustration look polished and good. So again, just take all the time you need here, go ahead and outline everything that is polar bear related, and then we're going to keep going. We're going to add the sweater and the other colors as well. So when you're happy with your outlines, you can simply fill them in. So to do that in Procreate, you can just go on the top right corner and then drag the color onto the shape. Now, if it fills the entire canvas, it's just because there's a hole in your outlines, so just patch the hole and then try again and it should be okay. So once you have your bear, go ahead and create a new layer and rename this one to Clothes. So above the bear, below the sketch cell, and for that you can pick, again, any color of your choice for the clothes. I'm gonna go with a nice bright red. And here, same thing, we're just going to be outlining the sweater and the hat and any other clothing elements that you might have on your character. And here I'm gonna stop talking, I'm gonna let you focus on your clothes outline, speed up the video a little bit, and we're gonna meet up for the gift. Now, staying on the same layer, once you're done with your red, we're actually going to go ahead and pick white for the brim, the hat, as well as the pom-pom. So here, just pure white. I know we rarely use that, but here I think it's good because otherwise if we go with like a gray or something like that, it's going to look really, really weird with the bear. So we're going to make an exception here and use pure white. And no, we're not going to be able to have highlights on the brim of the hat, but well, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And here, honestly, it might be helpful to hide the sketch layer just so you make sure that you really connect the base of the hat with the head shape. Since the colors are so similar, I find that if we have the sketch layer on as well, it's just really confusing. So you can just hide it temporarily and we're going to add it back in the next step. Now, if at this stage everything looks super flat, don't worry, when we add the shadows, it's going to make everything pop. For now though, we are going to create a new layer above the clothes, but below the sketch for the gift. So here the gift could really be any color of your choice. Here, since I'm going with more of a Christmassy theme, I'm gonna go with a green gift to go along with the red. So same thing here, just outlining your shape and then filling it in. At this stage, you might also want to add the bow details on the gift. So again, still on the same gift layer, you can go back and picking pure white or any other color you want the bows to be. And same thing, just outlining your shapes and then filling them in to have your silhouette. And before moving on to the details, it might be helpful as well to zoom out, deactivate your sketch layer, and making sure that all your silhouettes are touching each other and that everything looks good. So once you're happy with your silhouettes, we're going to start adding the details and outlines so that we actually have some sort of a bear and not just a big blob like this. So for that, go ahead and create a new layer above the gift layer, but below the sketch, rename it to details. And we're going to start with just one color for the outlines. So you can pick whatever color of your choice. Later, I'm going to show you how to recolor them. Now, if you want to have just like black outlines everywhere, you could also definitely do that. Now, I like to have darker versions of my base color. So here, for example, in the palette, you can see all the colors on the right have a darker version of them. So for now, I'm going to go and draw everything with the dark version of the red. So if you're using your own color, you would just go in the history or color pick the color and make it darker. Now here, in terms of brushes you can use, you can go in the sketching panel and pick the 6B pencil. It has a really nice grit to it. Otherwise, if you have the illustration bundle, pick the outline brush. And here, again, super simple step. Like I was telling you, the hardest part of the tutorial we've done already. It was just drawing the sketch. So now all we have to do is go over a sketch, over our silhouettes, and adding the outlines and any other kind of detail that we might have. Now the trick here is we want to make sure that these lines are really, really nice and smooth. So in general, when you're drawing details in outline, I really recommend you try and avoid erasing. So if you're drawing a line that you don't like, just undo. In Procreate, it's really easy to undo. You just tap on the screen with 2 fingers. And if you want to redo, you tap on the screen with 3 fingers. So it takes 2 seconds to do. But that way, instead of erasing and trying a little section in your line again, if you just undo, you're going to get lines that are smoother overall. And believe it or not, when you get used to it, it's going to be much, much faster than trying to erase and redo and erase and redo. So just go over all your lines, find the outlines, add any detail as needed. Once more, I'm going to stop talking to let you focus, but I'm going to have my video running in the background so that you kind of have a reference. But yeah, super simple, really relaxing. Here's a great time to grab a cup of tea, maybe a little bit of chocolate, and just really relax. Once you're happy with the way your outlines are looking, you can go ahead and activate Alpha Lock on the details layer. So you can also hide the sketch, it might be helpful. But to activate Alpha Lock, you can just swipe the layer with 2 fingers towards the right, or you can just tap on it and then activate Alpha Lock in the menu. Now everything we draw on this details layer is going to stay within the outlines that we already have there, so it's going to be super easy to go and just select your base color. For example, for the polar bear, make it darker and just color the outlines that way. So again, it's an easy step, it's quite quick. I'm going to stop talking, let you focus once more. All you have to do is recolor everything that is touching the bear with a darker version of your bear color. And once your outlines are touching the bear are now dark green, you can go and do the same for the gift. So you could just pick whatever color you use for the gift, make it slightly darker, and then just recolor the outlines in that area. We're also going to be recoloring the facial features because right now it looks a little bit scary with the red eyes, so just picking a black or a charcoal, whatever you want, and going over the facial features. Now here for the nose, if you want, you can add a little bit of a highlight, so picking pure white and, well, just drawing a highlight like this, so just kind of a little line. I think it's super cute. And before we move on to shading, if you want to add any pattern on the wrapping paper on your gift, that would be a good time to do it. So just creating a new layer above your gift, renaming it to pattern or something like that. And here, I mean, it depends on the pattern. I like to apply mine as a clipping mask so that it stays within the shape of the gift. And then using the blending mode, multiply so that I just get a darker version of my green. So you can see it's just green, but darker. So if you wanted to have, for example, like snowman or something like that, you would just use the regular blending mode and then paint in white. But here I'm just going to be drawing some Christmas trees, so I want a darker version of my green. So for my Christmas trees, all I'm doing is drawing the basic placement of all the trees, so just vertical lines first, and then on top of the vertical lines I draw 2 triangles like this, and that creates a simple, nice little tree. And once you're pretty much done with your pattern, feel free to go back and erase any line that might be over the bow or anywhere that it shouldn't be. And also feel free to go back and experiment with different blending modes and opacity until you get a pattern that you really like the blending of. Okay, so the shading is going to really bring this piece to life because right now there's so much white, it looks super flat. So for the shading, what I like to do is create just a scrap layer above everything. We don't need to rename it because it's just going to be kind of a guide. And then drawing my light source. So for that, just kind of a basic circle using the paintbrush, not the eraser. Just a circle, then with a bunch of rays that kind of cover the character. Now you can place your light source wherever you want it to be, but having it like that is going to really help you know where to put your shadows, especially if you're newer to illustration. So once you have that, we're going to create a new layer on which we're actually going to draw the shadows. So this layer, I like to put it above the details layer. You could put it below if you want, but I like to have it above so that I can also shade my outlines. Otherwise, sometimes they start blending in a little bit weirdly. So just creating a new layer. And for that one, we're going to use the blending mode linear burn, and we're going to set the opacity around 50% for now. That being said, we're going to change it later, so you don't need to be super precise. You can pick whatever color you want for shading, just try avoiding using a neutral gray or black. As you can see, it creates really muddy shadow. It doesn't look super good. Instead, try using a gray that has a little bit of color in it. So I like using a gray that has a bit of purple. It could be a bit of blue. You know, you can really experiment with that. And you can see it just has more life in it. So play around with the color here until you get something that you like, and then we're going to start mapping the cast shadows. So to create cast shadows, it's quite simple. First, we're going to select a brush that has a little bit of texture, so you can stick with the 6B pencil, or if you have the illustration bundle, you can change to either the basic texture or the shader. Both work really well. It's just a question of personal preference. Recently, I've been really loving the basic texture, so that's the one I'm going to be using. And then all you have to do is start from your light source and follow the rays until you hit a body part. Like for example, here I'm hitting the arm and I can see that, okay, the arm is going to cast a shadow on the body behind it. So you're just going to follow all the different body parts, just like following the ray, seeing when it hits a body part and then adding a shadow behind it. If you're new to illustration, I know shading is usually quite scary. It's very intimidating. So if you're new and you don't feel quite confident, don't hesitate to have the same light source as me and just copy the shadows that I am doing. You're still going to be learning. That being said, if you're feeling confident today or if you want to try something new, I highly recommend you to try and slightly change the position of the light source and see how it affects the placement of the shadow. That way you're going to learn how to shade yourself, which is really super good skill to have. Great, so now we have our cast shadows, which really helps, but our character still looks super flat. And the reason for that is cast shadow is only one type of shadow, there are so many more. And we're going to work now on what is called form shadow. So you can see if we follow the ray, at one point, since our character is curving away, the light is not going to be reaching that far. So we're also going to be creating form shadows to help show that our character is 3D and not flat. So the form shadows are mostly going to be on the, well, they're going to be on the opposite side of your light source. So in my case, they're going to be on the left side of my character. And as you can notice here, the form shadows tend to be kind of a gradient, so they're really softer. Cast shadows have hard edges in general. Form shadows have soft edges. So for now, you're just going to roughly place them again on the side opposite to your light source. And don't worry about really creating a nice gradient for now, because in the next step, we're going to blend them in. So once more, take all the time you need. I'm going to stop talking and let you focus, and we're going to meet in the next step so we can blend these shadows together. Great, so now that we have our basic shadows placed, we can go back and tweak them. So we can tweak the opacity of the layer, but we can also go back and blend them in a little bit better because right now the edges are kind of rough. So using the smudge tool, you can set it either to the soft brush in the airbrushing panel if you want really soft transition. I like to use the stucco brush in the painting panel because it has a little bit of texture and I feel like that just works with my brushes a little bit better. So at this stage, all you have to do is go back and blend in the edges of your form shadows, making sure that you don't blend the cast shadows too much. So you want to have some contrast within the shadows, you want to have some softness as well as some harder edges. Awesome. Now here, if at this point you're not super happy with the tint or the hue of your color, that's totally okay. You can go in the adjustment panel here at the top, selecting hue, saturation, and brightness for the entire layer. And that's going to allow you to change the color a little bit. So you can play with the hue slider, which is going to change what we usually call the color. So is it like a blue shadow or is it an orange shadow? You can play with that there. You can play with the saturation as well, which is going to change how intensely colored it is. So is it bright, vibrant color or is it kind of muted? And you can also go back and play with the opacity of the shadow layer itself until you get, the intensity of a shadow you like. Once that is done, we're going to create a drop shadow as well. So just going and creating a new layer, putting it below the bear but above the background shape, renaming it to drop shadow. And we're going to once more use the blending mode linear burn so that it matches the shadow we have on the bear. And you can see I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it in just a second. And now all you have to do once you have your drop shadow layer is to draw kind of an oval below your bear so that it doesn't look like it's floating in the midair anymore. So something a little bit like this. Now that we have our shadows, we're going to add some highlights to really bring this piece to life and make it pop so much more. So for that, I like to create a new layer and this time put it below the details, because if we have shadows and highlights on the details, it becomes way too much. So this one, below the details, we're going to use the blending mode add, which is really, really strong. So if you want, you could go ahead and lower the opacity. For now, I think I'm going to give it, leave it 100% since we're working on white. And in terms of the color you can use, I like to go with a super bright yellow-orange color. It looks like the sun. I like it, but you could go with any other bright color of your choice. And here you're going to stick with either the 6B pencil or going back, if you have the illustration bundle, to the outline brush. Now, if you want here, you can also reactivate your light source sketch and just following the rays. And every time the ray hits a body part or an object or something like that, you would do what I called outlining the outline. And here we can barely see it on the bear. Barely see it on the bear. That's funny. Sorry, I'm getting tired, I think. But yeah, so you're just adding a highlight on the edge of your shape, and which is really not a realistic way of, highlighting stuff. But I think it's a really easy way of doing it, and it really helps making the different individual parts of illustration pop, and it adds a lot of contrast really quickly and really nicely. So this is my style of highlighting and adding lights. If you have a different style, of course, please, by all means, go ahead and do it now. But basically, we're just gonna add some lights right now. And right now, leaving it 100% I realize is a little bit too intense, so you can always go back at the end and play with the opacity of your effects layer, so the lights and the shadows, until you get something that you like in terms of blending and in terms of bringing the piece a three-dimensional feel without it looking super crazy intense. And if you enjoyed this video and want to learn how to draw more holiday themed illustration, I highly recommend you check out this playlist in which I'm going to teach you exactly that. But before we leave, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the weekly videos I post every Tuesday and Saturday. Then click on the link right here and I'll meet you there.